What do you want to be when you grow up? LA. What did you see when you were just a little girl? LA, what would make you happy? LA, what do you want and need? LA, my elder. What lessons do you have for us? Nobody asks her. Nobody asks, or maybe nobody's listening. If LA could talk, she would ask for all her schools to be good, to be great. No more moving neighborhoods just to access quality education. Zip codes should be merely zip codes, not sentences, dictating paths toward or away from brighter futures. If LA could talk, her heart would ask each Angelino, know their neighbor. Share a meal, a love letter, a sorrow, a celebration, a breath, a moment of familiarity. No more strangers in her home. If LA could talk, she would ask ICE to leave her city so Black and brown youth don't have to wonder if their parents will be home upon returning from school. If LA could talk, she would demand we fill empty luxury apartments and condominiums with all the beings who need homes. No more empty homes solely seeking profit. If LA could talk, she would tell her politicians to knock on the doors of their constituents, not only when they need votes and signatures, but when the people have asks for them. If LA could talk, she would let youth know City Hall belongs to them. All public buildings would be living rooms for lounging, sharing ideas, breaking bread, making connections, and envisioning together. LA, what do you want to be when you grow up? LA, what did you see when you were just a little girl? LA, what would make you happy? LA, what do you want and need? LA, my elder, what lessons do you have for us? Over dinner, we gathered around the table. We asked and she spoke. And she had a lot to say. Lots to say. See, if we listen, LA speaks through us. Hello, my name is Tiffany Caldas. I am the Special Projects Manager of Community Coalition. Community Coalition is a 30-year-old community organizing institution that involves thousands of Black and brown residents in transforming public policy to improve the lived conditions in South LA. Thank you for gathering with us today. While we are gathered for this event, let us remember that we are on the traditional territory of Gabrielino Tongva people and that they were the traditional caretakers of this land. Today, you are all here to show support for a first step in establishing an Office of Racial Equity. A forward-thinking office that actively works to prioritize those most marginalized and forgotten by this City Hall in all decisions our city government makes. This campaign has been made possible through EmbRACE LA. EmbRACE LA is a citywide initiative meant to change and challenge inequities through explicit dialogue and policy change that addresses race, racism, and racial inequity. EmbRACE LA was originally founded in 2017 by Council President Wesson and Council Member O'Farrell, and since then has been implemented by Community Coalition with the help of a number of current and past producing partners, including Advancement Project California, Revolve Impact, Department of the Future, the Todd Group, and Christina Pacheco. The poem I read for you all was written by Erica Ray. She's a local artist and healing justice advocate who attended an EmbRACE LA dinner facilitated by me this fall, in dialogue with Councilmember O'Farrell, residents, and community-based organizations serving District 13, a number of which are present with us today behind me. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our next speaker, a lifelong South LA community member, a Community Coalition member leader, an artist, a teacher, and someone who was activated by and involved with several EmbRACE LA dialogues this fall, Tamra Valdry.
morning. Like Tiffany said, I'm a lifelong resident of Los Angeles. This is my city. I love my city. There was a point at which, however, life kind of took over, and I wasn't as active in the dialogue, the discourse of the city. I have a really good friend who was involved with Coco, along with Gilbert. They really encouraged me to begin to volunteer. Once I volunteered, I began to feel activated. And upon beginning that feeling of being activated, I started to engage with the EmbRACE dinners. And so earlier this year, I went to my first EmbRACE dinner. It was phenomenal. It allowed us to come to a table of vulnerability and begin to have discourse around the issues within my community, within our community. Issues of homelessness, issues of incarceration, issues that stream down from lack of access in terms of equitable education to lack of access in terms of affordable housing. And what I loved most was the vulnerable conversations that took place. These were conversations about the very issues that the Office of Racial Equity is planning to address in a proactive manner. And that's the thing. This is a proactive organization, not organization, but a proactive office. And so at that table, we saw vulnerability present to the degree that there was a cameraman there who, as we were winding up, wept over the fact that he, white guy in a relationship with a black woman, said that he actually had never broached conversations around race within his relationship. This man was tearing up. And so this table, this EmbRACE table, brought that level of vulnerability, and it spilled over and began to create a solidarity. And that's what I see the cause of the Office of Racial Equity moving toward, that of solidarity, where we understand one another. The second meeting that I went to, the second EmbRACE meeting that I went to, was one where Council Member Harris Dawson was present. And the thing that truly excited me was when he began to talk about data, collecting data, monitoring, and tracking data, because we know knowledge is power. Information is power. And so I got excited because data in the right hands can make changes in policy, in practices, and in programs. And so I'm excited about the Office of Racial Equity and the grassroots organizations coming together, because that's the only way it's going to work. And so I'm excited to see this happen. There's a quote that I love by W.E.B. Du Bois, and he wrote it in 1900 as he was preparing to address the nations of the world. And he said, the problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line. Here we are at the threshold of 2020, 100 years and 20 years later, and the problem of the 21st century is still the problem of the color line. We need the Office of Racial Equity. I would like to introduce to you Rodrigo Moreno.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rodrigo Moreno. I was born and raised in South Central Los Angeles. Let's go. I am the son of undocumented immigrants, and as a child, I saw both of my parents deported from my home. So my upbringing was very much one that taught me to be distrustful of the government, one that made me not trust at all or have any confidence in politics. Government and politics, that was a thing for white people. That was a thing for people who had money to donate to political campaigns. And I could not identify with either one of those categories. Eventually, I was able and fortunate enough to go to college, where I learned that there was an entire system. There's an entire white supremacist system that has laws and policies and attitudes that govern over communities like mine that feel disempowered. Communities like mine that don't always feel that City Hall is a place for them. That power is not something that is accessible or that is within reach, within grasp. And so by being able to learn about this entire system and by seeing it play out in the lived experiences and the material reality of the people in my neighborhood and the people of my community, I realized that I could use my privilege. I could use whatever knowledge, whatever skills I had to play my part in improving the conditions of the people in my community and in my neighborhood. And so today I speak before you all with a few words, mainly to encourage City Council, to encourage City Hall to take the necessary steps to create the much needed Office of Racial Equity. City Hall, I call on you to hold up a mirror to yourself, to realize that as an entity, you literally govern over millions of people. You decide how you govern. You decide what voices you listen to, what you weigh in when you adopt these policies, when you adopt the practices and standards that are going to be carried on to the next generation. City Hall, I call on you to recognize that, yeah, your jobs are about balancing budgets and shaking hands and going to fundraisers, but they're also, again, about making policies that will affect the material reality and the lived experiences of millions of people and of communities like my own. City Hall, I call on you to change your culture, to shift your culture from one that says that this is business as usual, to one where communities like mine really do believe that City Hall is a place for them as well. City Hall, I encourage you all to do what is right on this beautiful morning, to take the decision and make the right vote in order to truly make a government that is for all. Because if a government does not include everyone, does not include those communities that are in the margins that feel ignored, then I feel that the government has failed. And a true indication of where we are headed as a society, a true marker for what type of city we are leaving the next generation, is the way that our government and our system pays attention and listens, responds to those communities that feel ignored, that traditionally have been left in the shadows. So what is the Los Angeles that we are leaving the next generation? Whose voices are we going to center and uplift and support? Who will have access to that power? Everyone, I now would like to present to everyone the next speaker, Council President Wesson.
Good morning, everybody. For the hell of it, let's just give ourselves a round of applause. You know, this is a very emotional moment for me. I'm proud to say that this idea, this dream, was born in City Hall, helped created by Councilman O'Farrell, and this was a dream of mine, a dream that people should be able to go as far as their abilities and imagination would take them. I believe that it was a time for us in government to realize that when this government was created, it was not created to benefit people that look like us. So it was time for us to kind of switch reels and to change things. It's time for us to realize that why is it by accident that individuals of color own less property than those that are not? Is it by coincidence that we make less money than other people? Is it a coincidence that 9% of the population is African American, yet 40% of the individuals that sleep on the streets at night are black? Is that a coincidence? No. Is it a coincidence when we go to our jails and our prisons that the majority of people that you see in there look like the individuals that are standing beside me today? So for once, it is time for government to recognize the root causes of these issues and do our job to try to correct it and put us on the right path, to create opportunities for equity. That's basically what we want, to create opportunities for equity. So it's just an honor to be here today, and we believe that the creation of this office, number one, will send a message that there is a fire truck going eastbound, and let's hope they get to where they need to go quickly so that they can save a life. But it's time for us to recognize that we are responsible for a lot of these inequities, and we have a responsibility to try to fix it. This is the world that I dream of, where you could be judged by your deeds and your actions and not by the color of your skin. I dream of a world where what religion you practice does not mean anything. I dream of a world where people are not judged based on who they love or how they love. The only thing that we should care about is that they love. I dream of a world where it's not so important to us what kind of documents you possess. It's what kind of neighbor you're going to be and what kind of American citizen your children are going to grow up to be. And I believe the creation of this office is a step in that direction, and I am so proud to a point where I could almost cry. It is my pleasure to bring up to you an individual that helped me dream this dream, that helped me come up with a way to create this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to present to you Councilman Mitch O'Farrell.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Council President Wesson. Like so many people in recent years, as a child of the civil rights era in the 60s and 70s, when from a very young age, I was taught that we were on a really wonderful trajectory in this country toward equality, to full equality and full civil rights for everyone, no matter your background, no matter what your race or religion was. And in recent years, to see a complete setback, a complete reversal of those ideals has left me just completely shattered, and I know I'm not alone in that. And what I was reflecting on with that dynamic in play is how society, we can certainly grow to start taking things for granted. We make progress, and through plenty of setbacks, through plenty of challenges, we make progress toward a fairer, more equal United States of America. And we have these setbacks, and we realize that we've taken these things for granted and that we have to really rise up and resist in a very, very strong and powerful way as never before. And as an elected official in the city of Los Angeles, the city of angels, where we like to think of ourselves as progressive and forward-thinking and groundbreaking, and we make history here because we really do believe that everyone, no matter who you are or where you're from, that you're expected to reach your full potential, that you're encouraged to do so no matter what. Well, all of that is at threat. It's under threat right now with what we have going on in this country. And we need to, at the local level, do everything we possibly can to reverse what we're seeing in the larger public sphere, where it's perfectly okay for the President of the United States to come out and make fun of disabled people, to practice open bias and discrimination against everyone who is not like him, and to start thinking and telling the world that it's okay to admire tyrants across the globe. We're in a very, very dangerous place, but we can do so much at the local level to show the world that in this country we still have ideals and that we still are reaching toward the stars, and we're working on creating a space where everyone has a fair and equal shot at success and reaching their full potential, and making sure that future generations can take advantage of that environment that we create as well. Now, many of you know that I'm of Native American heritage as well, and I couldn't be more proud that we're standing here with leaders like Joe Quintana from AIM right here. Thank you, Joe, for being here. And we know that in the Native American community, the percentages of harm are just off the charts. For example, one of the things that we strive for is to make sure that Native Americans and Alaska Natives who have the highest percentage of denied mortgage applications at 27.3% also have an equal shot. Native Americans just make up 1% of the United States population, but all of the trends and percentages of what ails the Native American community just is far higher than any other demographic group. One thing that I've been focusing on as well, as chair of the Homelessness and Poverty Committee, we held our first ever poverty summit in September. From that, a report will be generated. We're taking a look at the fundamentals of poverty, where it's entrenched the most in Los Angeles, and we're going to take a look at what that report tells us and craft some policy on helping to address poverty at its core in the census tracts where we know it exists, where we know it's entrenched. One huge obstacle, and something that is really woven into our fabric of society, is discrimination and racism. We know that. We know that to unravel that, we have to really take a look at the fundamentals of where that exists and effectuate policy and bring resources to the communities that need it the most. And I think with this Office of Racial Equity, in concert with all of these incredible nonprofits who are in the trenches every day doing this work, we can, at City Hall, effectuate the policy that will make a huge difference. It's not so long ago that in Los Angeles, founded on the backs of the Native Americans who were here first, the Tongva, right here where Civic Center is built, not so long ago, there were restricted covenants for real estate across the city, just a few generations ago. So through decades and hundreds of years of baked in racial inequity, it's going to take a lot of work and it's going to take some time, but we'll get there. And establishing a house at City Hall that deals with racial equity issues is a wonderful start, because we've needed that for a long, long time. Now we have an office that the city leadership can work with to come up with these policy ideas, and to also just serve as a constant reminder that we have work to do to make Los Angeles a welcoming, equal city for everyone, no matter who you are, where you're from, what race or religion you belong to. And I couldn't be more proud to be part of this. And lastly, I want to highlight Jasmine Creighton, who is here. Jasmine is on the Transgender Advisory Council here in Los Angeles, but she also does incredible, groundbreaking work for the transgender community, which has a way outsized proportion of of being the target of discrimination and assaults. So in the Office of Racial Equity, we will not leave anyone behind. And that's what this is about too. Thank you.
Thank you all. I'm just going to bring up our final speaker, who is with Juvie Productions. Him and his wife, Viola Davis, have gotten behind this effort. So everyone, please give it up to Julius Tannen. Thank you.
Thank you, Dodo. Hey, listen, it's wonderful to be here with you all this morning. I want to lead with something. It's a short little excerpt from what Frederick Douglass said. Power concedes nothing without a demand. Right. And, you know, when I look around at this group here, it looks a whole lot like our office in L.A., Juvie Productions. We're a very diverse group of executives and creatives. And, you know, it's just so important for us to embrace, because LA's always been seen as this beacon, this place to go to, this place of opportunity. And we all know that that's true to some degree, but that then there are these racial inequities that do exist, and that we do live in a time now where it seems like we're all getting pushed away from each other, but when actually we're all better together than we are when we're apart. And so I think that it's just so apropos that Coco and this initiative pushing through with this office is so, so important. And I think, you know, obviously when I was looking at kind of how this office has come together, the things they want to do, I think it is the services. I think it is the programs. I think the policies have to be solid and look through. And I think then there's that piece. The big piece is opportunity and then resources. Because without those, then it's just not going to happen. So I think we have to make it incumbent upon City Hall to get behind what Mr. Wesson started so many years ago and his team, and look toward a better and brighter future for Los Angeles. Right. Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing's going to change. It is not. Thank you.
So just to close out, thank you all so much for being here. It's always right to point out towards injustice and bring justice into the world. There's never a bad time to do that. But there's no better time than now, when our communities are being pitted against each other, for our city and for our community to unite and to demand justice and bring light onto the darkness of the inequities in this city, and push for new policies and new practices and a new way of walking. A walking where we not only hold hands and celebrate, but we walk a step closer to freedom, and our communities can feel justice in the light of day. Thank you all so much for being here today. Appreciate y'all.